Did you think I was already done debunking objectively false claims in MauLer's video? Of course I'm not done yet, as it is a gold mine of bad takes.
So how come you didn't mention the absolute myriad of issues this game has either?
How was H-Bomber supposed to mention the myriad of issues that MauLer simply made up? The vast majority of what MauLer called issues actually fall in one of three categories. They were either just his own skill issues, or they were an intended mechanic that he falsely accuses of being a bug, or they are something that works the exact same in every Souls game.
Where in the hell were hitboxes? Where was the AI? Where was the ADP? I'm not trying to pour more soil onto his grave, but his video was so bloody awful. Some people have told me it might have actually been parody and that I've made a sort of mistake in responding to it as seriously as I did. But you don't understand. It doesn't matter because my videos now exist and they stand as a testament to what Dark Souls 2 objectively offers you.
I think throughout my series I made it pretty clear that MauLer has no idea what objectivity even means, as he constantly refers to his subjective preferences as objective facts. In this video I will only cover a few more instances.
But if there is one thing to take away from all of this, that
MauLer
made an awful video.
In one of my previous videos I covered how he pretty much had to deliberately aggro a whole bunch of enemies in No Man's Wharf in order to make it look like this area is filled with unfair enemy spam, but I forgot to address an even worse argument. Not even this attempt has me chased by as many enemies as he was.
Now I want to nitpick a couple of things, so calm down if you think I'm saying these are huge mistakes. They're not, they're just annoying. When you disconnect from the internet, depending on whatever issue you may have, the game reduces your overall visibility by half and adds an enormous message in the center of the screen. It doesn't care what's happening, it just does it. This gets very annoying if you actually would, you know, in the middle of not having great internet. This sort of thing is avoided by pressing A quickly and won't even happen for those with perfect internet, so it's fine, but holy hell, next time just put a message in the top right game, or why not just have it be something you don't even need to press A for? Just make it, you know, a little pop-up in the top right that disappears on its own after 5 seconds.
If you lose your network connection in DS2 there is a small pop-up, but you can still move and only have to click it away before you can continue with full vision again. If you lose your network connection in DS1 it is game over. A huge pop-up shows up and you can no longer move. After clicking OK you will go back to the title menu. And once you are back in the game you will often have to go back to the bonfire, as the enemies will be reset back to full health, but you still wasted a few Estus charges. In DS3, it again works like in DS1. Objectively, DS2 handles losing internet connection the best. You can still move while the pop-up is showing and you do not get kicked back into the start menu. But as usual MauLer disingenuously makes it look like a flaw in DS2, while leaving out the context that it is much worse in the other Souls games.
For instance, the beginning of the game with the first spam bush we've talked about previously, dropping off that ledge is very punishing, as is the drop during the fight with the Ruin Sentinels, despite these areas coming across as opportunities to navigate.
Here I just wanted to point out that there is in fact a platform that does indeed come across as the obvious opportunity to navigate, which MauLer apparently missed in his 14 playthroughs. This drop teaches new players at which height they start to take damage.
Far more frustrating, but rather than describing them all in detail, let me pick one, just like he did. There is an area just to the right of Macduff in Dark Souls 2 that spawns you just about 6 dogs, 2 archers, and a pursuer. Bear in mind that the pursuer may be a boss that you haven't even fought at this point. Using my ranged build, which would be the most beneficial here for the archers, I had a seriously large amount of trouble being able to take out surrounding spam before I could even think about the boss.
He has a ranged build, but he does not even make any actual use of it. He has the gate next to Macduff open, so he will also have access to the bonfire on the upper level, which should be the obvious choice if you want to easily take out the archers and want to deal with less dogs. It is really not that hard to deal with the enemies before triggering the pursuer to spawn. So this is once again something where he blames the game for his own skill issues, instead of accepting that he could have utilized some sort of strategy. One dog joined the battle, but at that point the pursuer had already been defeated. Okay, so from the exile holding cell's bonfire it was easy to take out surrounding spam before fighting the pursuer. But how does it look like if you approach this encounter from the McDuff bonfire? Once again we can see that MauLer heavily exaggerated the difficulty to artificially make DS2 look more frustrating.
Upon subsequently visiting the area, I found that the archers were now on the ground since they don't reset structures until death. This meant that I now have 9 mobs to deal with while tiptoeing around the pursuer's spawn range. Of course, I couldn't quite do it, but after a huge amount of struggle and frustration, I was able to overcome the horrendous choices in enemy placement and ultimately kill the pursuer.
These structures would also reset upon teleporting back to this area, but let us ignore this small mistake and focus on the actual point that it is still much easier to take care of the enemies than MauLer claims, especially with his ranged build. Although there would not be much difference to a melee build either. If you are fast enough you can defeat them all before the fight with pursuer even starts.
Once I was able to clear the area, I was in desperate need of healing and the boss had started his projectile spam. I naturally go behind a wall and it results in him despawning because it registered the scenario as if I had left his arena.
I hope he doesn't mention the fact that this optional encounter despawn in order to make DS2 look bad, because giving players the choice to end the battle is a good feature. But before I address this, let us take a look at how he usually heals.
He is implying that sometimes you simply cannot heal at all, and you will die, while in something like Bloodborne you will never be without a chance to heal. This is wrong, because there's always a chance to heal, and it is a tactical choice in the game. You need to understand your enemy and identify your opportunity, as I've shown several times already. You have to fight for that heal, Harris. You have to do it with your own understanding of the enemies.
I just found it funny that when it comes to this pursuer encounter he mentions that he naturally went behind a wall to heal, but when he wants to argue against H-Bomber Guy he smugly claims that you just need to understand the enemy and look for an opening. That projectile spam he complained about would have been the perfect opening.
What I am highlighting here is the hilarity in comparing this with the Taurus Demon battle for forceful archers. Dark Souls 1 gave me the chance to clear those archers while simultaneously learning about the vantage point for a plunging attack. While here, well, this was just another bloody spam bush. Whatever you're trying to prove, believe me, Dark Souls 2 does it more and does it worse.
Before I move on to optional encounters I would just like to point out that based on his low damage output it is obvious that he has been using an unupgraded fire longsword, probably to make this encounter look more difficult.
So I'm not talking about the fact that the pursuer can despawn during your fight with him because he has an incompetently limited area.
Of course MauLer makes it look like a flaw that the pursuer has an interesting mechanic. He always shows up in small arenas, and despawns if you leave the battle. You as the player have to be competent enough to realize this. This is not a flaw. This is just yet another instance of MauLer trying to artificially make this game look bad, by presenting good things in a negative way. Another one of my favorite optional encounters is also in the Scholar version. They added an ogre in the Forest of Fallen Giants that just wants to take a bath in the river. He has a pretty low aggro range and generally does not want to fight you, unless you actively disturb him. He really does not want to fight you and quickly drops his aggro after like 1 to 5 attacks, to go back to taking a bath. To me, this always seemed like intended behavior to make it easier for new players to ignore this optional encounter. Interestingly, after he drops his aggro, he seems like he is still irritated, as his aggro range will be a bit higher afterwards and it takes longer before he drops his aggro a second time.
Like, all the bloody time now. What are you doing, mate? What? What the f—
And as expected, MauLer presents this as a bug. In reality, this scripted behavior adds a lot of personality to this enemy.
come from? What? Hello?
This turtle knight is at the lower elevator. I just had to include this because I'm wondering what MauLer is even trying to show here. He finished the game several times and apparently never noticed this enemy. You can see him on the way down, or if you send the elevator back up.
What the f—
To me, this looks like he discovered that enemies have a limited aggro range before they de-aggro and go back to their spawn point. I'm pretty sure he simply lured an Elan Knight from the open area here, and then encountered his de-aggro range. So once again, he makes an intended mechanic look like a bug. There will be a few more instances of MauLer luring enemies outside of their aggro range, only to present their AI as broken, even though everyone knows that this works pretty much the exact same way in every FromSoft game. Like seriously, does this here look any less broken? I'm still not sure if MauLer just has a poor understanding of Souls mechanics in general, or if he deliberately includes such clips in the hope that people will not pay enough attention to what is actually happening. In every FromSoft game, this can lead to situations that look bugged. I really do not see how DS2 was in any way special here.
Some will literally lose it during the battle for no apparent reason. Some will behave as though there is something better to see inside a wall.
The apparent reason is that this enemy was too far away from his spawn point, which again is simply an intended behavior in every single FromSoft game. I'm pretty sure it was this enemy, as he has the same de-aggro range as we saw in MauLer's clip.
Oh, Dragon Rider. Thanks, dude. How you doing, buddy? I just want to sit behind you. Okay, we're running away now. Well, that dude's just running into the fucking wall. Oh, this game's so good. Hitting them seems to almost activate the broken AI, like receiving damage damages their brains. These AI are downright bugged.
Once again, this is not a bug. Their aggro range is set low here to prevent them from entering the boss fight after you defeated him. I also do not know how he even managed to get him all the way to the other side of the room. Would he rather have situations like this? In DS3, they even added invisible walls to prevent this from happening.
Where are you guys going?
As expected, they are going back to their spawn point.
But we really are getting too positive here, so I may as well share the more stupid shit with the models, right? We have poorly cut models in terms of certain hitboxes again, preventing you from progressing certain areas, which is kind of just embarrassing.
He once again makes it look much worse than it actually is. And it's not as if DS2 was any worse in this regard than DS1. This poorly cut model actually prevents you from progressing, despite coming across as an opportunity to navigate. Here your whole head can disappear in a branch, but wait, there's even more just from this single area. I think I've made my point, so let us go back to enemies dropping their aggro for no apparent reason.
Oh hey, I got the Knight Gauntlets. So yeah, they do drop their armor and shit. Where the f do you think you're running to?
You can probably guess where he is running to. Yeah, once again it is an enemy that has been lured so far away from his spawn point that he completely dropped his aggro to return back. By the way, I guess they have a point where they just run back, because it can have funny looking consequences. This one left the area he is assigned to, and got teleported back to his spawn.
Regardless of positioning, damage, bosses, or randies, no matter the weapon, items, or approach, they will f up, and it will usually be pretty funny, to be honest.
This again looks to me like he lured the enemy way outside of his aggro range. By waiting outside, I even managed to get him in an even funnier position. If you stay close and watch him, he has no issue finding his spawn point. And once again, this is not unique to DS2. In all of their games, it can happen that enemies do not fully go back to their spawn point. In case you do not see him, he is just standing there doing nothing.
So, is there anything else? No, actually.
This looks like he fought against the horse on the other end of the arena until this skeleton dropped the aggro.
Sense of being an enemy. Some seem to literally be stricken with senility and look as if they've forgotten what year it is, while others begin to set themselves up and ultimately stand still. You can attack them and have it still result in them sitting there having no idea what's going on.
These rare bugs are also something that you will encounter in every Souls game. I don't know what caused this one to freeze. Probably hit him during the wrong frame or whatever. In DS1, every time you switch your weapon, there is a 1 in 200 chance that the enemies freeze for 5 seconds, which took years until someone managed to figure it out. It's again just something that FromSoft constantly struggles with. Even Elden Ring had several bosses with this issue. Radagon froze if you rushed to him too fast, the ulcerated tree spirits froze if you did a critical attack at the wrong moment, the Death Knight could randomly freeze. By the way, this all started when I was trying to record the pathing of this rock lizard.
The AI to start has a pitifully incompetent aggro requirement that often makes them completely oblivious to your existence whether or not there's an obstruction.
Is he really complaining that enemies do not have eyes on their back? I bet most players enjoy being able to sneak in for a backstab, rather than having enemies magically know about your presence.
And for some weird reason, one enemy being aggro doesn't alert others to your presence. In fact, they can get in each other's way.
The store straight sword, they pretty much just one-shot her.
Look at this!
And
Here I also enjoy how the one on the right, who is further away from me, gets aggroed before the one on the left.
And then they were placed into extremely lopsided or rocky ground with no idea on how to deal with it.
He was unreachable from down there, so the turtle wanting to run up to get to him does suggest like it knew pretty well how to deal with it.
Why'd that back one get aggro, not the little one? Where are you going? Where's he going? What the? Why did he just run to the tree? He's attacking the tree! What the? There's another one! What the?
In a previous video I already explained how this situation makes perfect sense lore-wise, as these hollow soldiers still believe that they are fighting the giants, even though they have died so long ago that their bodies turned into trees. Today I want to show a few more mechanical details. Before I go into these details, here is something interesting in regards to a similar scripted event in DS1. The warp is only blocked as long as you are in the cell. Back to the mechanics. Here there is an actual bug in the pathfinding, as they often fall down on their way. If I try to watch them, I guess it spawns in the upper tree and they aggro that one instead. but if I switch control to one of them I can see their mistake. And if they do not jump down, they might just get stuck.
And I'm not talking about how enemies might randomly decide to shoot directly into the sky for lack of a better target.
In a previous video I've already shown how this works the same in the other Souls games and how it is caused by leaving their focus range. So here is the same thing still happening in Elden Ring.
And I'm not talking about the weird movements some enemies can have with absolutely no bloody explanation.
It's literally just one of his anime-looking moves. But I hope he isn't complaining that you can lure enemies down cliffs by baiting out attacks, as this works in every single FromSoft game.
The AI has a frighteningly low amount of self-preservation. You may have seen it in some of the clips already, but they will actively kill themselves when they have absolutely no reason to, putting themselves in ridiculous amounts of danger. This could be a pathing issue combined with an absolute lack of understanding of damage or danger.
What follows will be over 4 minutes of similar situations in Dark Souls 1 and 3. The ones I've picked aren't even rare situations and are likely to be encountered by most players. The point is that I do not see how Dark Souls 2 was especially broken in this regard, as there are many situations in all FromSoft games where enemies show a lack of understanding of damage or danger. I've tried to include a lot that I did not already include in previous videos, but some are just so funny that I had to include them again. So, sit back and enjoy this montage. Whee!
Hello?
They can't even come into this room. So like, I literally ran past them. Now they're like, Steve, what do we do now? Do we just, do we go back?
In one of the previous videos, I already showed a lot of instances of enemies being stuck indoors in the other Souls games, but now I want to bring up another point that I missed the last time. But first, let me cheese this creepy spider. Something that is much worse than enemies that can get stuck indoors are enemies that look like they would get stuck, but somehow still manage to get through.
What kind of architect built these stairs?
He is right that these stairs look weird, but he missed that this mismatched architecture is a consistent theme in the Lost Bastille. The architecture style of the outer wall looks different than the inner parts as it has been built much later, which is also why they seem like they do not fit together. The bridge pier also looks much older than the outer wall. There are a lot of parts that look like they have been repurposed or changed over time. All those architectural errors, useless corridors and weird doors do make sense if we consider the fact that the Lost Bastille was initially not built to be a prison. Which also explains why there are some areas that feel like they do not belong here. The architecture has some errors, as they rush to turn it into a prison.
In, Ogre, the bell of the princess. In, then, the bell of the prince. Yes!
Before it was turned into a prison, the Lost Bastille used to be a castle created to guard the Bell of Alcan. There is another bell in Iron Keep, and this connection is further supported by these doors. So yeah, these stairs look weird on purpose to show that this building has been changed when they turned the Bastille into a prison. There probably used to be a floor here, which was held up by that ring of bricks, before they removed it and added stairs.
There are plenty of elevations and gaps that the AI can't deal with and get absolutely confused, bobbing up, down, left and right, but even if that were the only reason it was happening, it would be bad, but it's worse than that. This shit just happens anyway.
Honestly, what is he even expecting them to do? Should they stand still like in DS1? Or should they just drop down like here in DS3? It's just yet another instance of him complaining about a non-issue that isn't in any way worse than in the other Souls games.
Now, I hope I don't put out terrible videos ever myself, because the whole point is that I spend so long on them that I stop them from being terrible in production. But people get lazy, people slip up, they downright run out of ideas or get really greedy.
We all make mistakes, but to prevent my own videos from being terrible, here is a small correction to one of my previous videos. I cut the clip wrong and didn't realize that we actually see the enemy doing an attack.
How is that not a backstab? Come on, game.
So, I got that slightly wrong. It was caused by the issue that the grab hitbox aligns with the vector the enemy is facing, but not the direction the animation suggests, which is the same in every Souls game. The main point still stands. MauLer tries to convince us that DS2 is the worst Souls game as it inherently broken and an objectively bad game, but the vast majority of arguments he uses to support this bad take apply just as much to every Souls game. Or, as we've seen with loss of network connection for example, he even tries to make things look bad that were implemented much better than in the other Souls games. I really do not understand how he thought that his personal bias and lack of understanding of Souls mechanics are somehow a good basis for an objective review.
are a dragon. More dragon than I.